Hey, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have a very exciting reading vlog planned for you because it's a reading vlog where I read some really anticipated releases. I have kind of a spooky paranormal romance book, and then I have some horror and thriller picks as well. And this reading vlog was such a huge success. I had so many 5-star books, it was unreal. I also read my favorite book I think that I've read this year, and I sobbed. I literally cried my eyes out over one of these books, and I kind of explain with spoilers why this book is my favorite book that I've read this year so far at the end of this video. But before we do jump into all of the things, I wanted to say a huge thank you to Ana Luisa for sponsoring today's video. Ana Luisa is a name you might be familiar with because I've been working with them for quite some time, and they are a jewelry brand that sells bracelets, necklaces, rings, earrings, all those kinds of things. They craft high quality pieces of jewelry at an affordable price without the luxury markups. What I really love about this company is the fact that they're carbon neutral. They offset 100% of their carbon emissions, and whether that's from their packaging to their actual products, they care about their impact on the planet, which is something that I definitely appreciate. I love how their packages come in this tiny little brown box, and then all of the jewelry comes in these tiny cute little packages. Like, I just adore it all, honestly. Like, it's just so cute. They have very unique designs that will make you feel empowered and elegant and at your finest. I got 4 pieces of their jewelry very recently. The first one that I got is this mood ring because, as I've talked about time and time again, I'm a huge fan of Ana Luisa's rings. Like, I just think their rings are some of the highest quality rings that I've ever owned. I wear them in my day-to-day life routinely, and this mood ring is one that I'm especially excited about because in high school I was a huge fan of mood rings. Like, I'm such a child about it. Like, I love it. I also got this mood necklace, which, you know, if I got a mood ring, I gotta get the mood necklace. You know, like, the fact that they have both as an option is just really freaking cool. I also got these rings right here that are stacked, and what's cool about these rings is that they come in a set of 3, so you can kind of like mix and match them and stack them however you want to, which is something that I think is really fun. You could either wear them on different fingers or you could stack them with other rings even if you wanted to. And then the last little ring that I got this time around is this cute little butterfly ring. Oh my god, I'm obsessed. Butterfly is so small, but it's like so simplistic and so adorable, and it just adds that like perfect touch. But Ana Luisa's jewelry is seriously some of my favorite jewelry on this planet. Like, I'm not even really a big jewelry person myself, but Ana Luisa's rings, like, I wear their rings almost on a daily basis. I wear them in the shower, I wear them to bed, like, I literally never take them off. And as mentioned, their jewelry is affordable. It starts at $39 and up, but if you use my code gabbyreads10, you can get a 10% discount on your order. Thank you so much to Ana Luisa for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get into the reading vlog. So in this reading vlog, you might be wondering which books I even end up reading in this. I do read The Dead Romantics, which this one is kind of the more paranormal romance that I've been really excited about. This romance has been hyped a lot for me so much in the last, you know, couple of months or so, like ever since I heard about it. And this author, I think, previously published YA, so I think I'm really curious to check this one out and see what it's all about. I also end up reading Wrong Place, Wrong Time during this vlog, which was so kindly sent to me by my friend Brittany. This one's like a new mystery thriller that also involves some like time travel or like time jumping. It's like a character who wakes up, she keeps waking up the day before the previous day. It's a wild time. I also finally get around to reading Daphne by Josh Malerman, which is a new release horror novel that I've been highly anticipating because, hello, Josh Malerman. And then I also read We Spread by Ian Reid, which is also one of my most anticipated kind of like horror mystery kind of books of the year because Ian Reid is the author of I'm Thinking of Ending Things and Foe, which I just recently gave 5 stars. So very excited for all of these books. I started with Daphne, so let's just throw it back about a week and get to the reading vlog. Oh my god, it is finally the day. I have Daphne in my possession. I'm so excited. This book is actually, it's a lot shorter than I thought it was gonna be. It's only about 260 pages. I'm so excited. I'm just so excited. Like, if I don't love this book, I might cry about it. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. I feel like Josh Malerman so far has been very hit or miss for me, but I am highly anticipating this book so much. Like, this one sounds the most interesting to me out of a lot of the recent Josh Malerman that has come out in the last few years. I got pumpkin spice creamer from the store yesterday. It needs to be a lot colder outside than it currently is. It's like almost 80 degrees still, and I'm like lying to myself by wearing these like crew necks and wanting to make hot coffee. I'm trying to pretend that it's colder outside than it currently is. I have the leftover remaining coffee that my dad made earlier today, and I am going to be using my sister's Aquarius mug because it's cute and it's black and I don't have one. Pour the rest of this coffee in. Our coffee is nice and toasty, and now We just pour in that creamer just like that. Boom. Take little spoon, very little spoon. Mix. Right on top, you know, like a professional. Then you just give it a minute to melt. I know this is not a lot of coffee. I'm just drinking what's left over from this morning. Hi, so hear me out, okay? I started reading Daphne and I read the first chapter of this. Well, I mean, there's not really chapters, you know, because there's literally no chapter breaks in this book. So I read the first, like, I don't know, 15 to 20-ish pages of this a little bit ago. And I thought, you know, the first chapter was just fine. I was thinking to myself that I was gonna wait until I could get my hands on the audiobook to help push me through some of this book, because the writing style was not my favorite, especially at the beginning of this book. We're basically following this teenage girl named Kit, and she's on her high school basketball team, and it's kind of cool because all the like girls on the team, they always like ask the rim a question, like the basketball rim, when they're playing. And there's this like local myth about this girl named Daphne that like wears a denim jacket and she's like 7 feet tall and she kills people. And so they ask the rim if Daphne is real, and the ball makes it in, so that means yes. And this book is interesting because, you know, we mainly get Kit's point of view, and then we also get some of her diary entries where she's talking about how she has some really severe anxiety. And I'm not gonna lie, the writing style in the first like 40 pages was tough for me. I think the writing style is really like hard to get into, and it's almost a little bit confusing and like hard to even visualize like what was happening. Like, I don't know, I just wasn't a huge fan of the writing style at the beginning. I found it to be just really like intense and overwhelming, but the audiobook did help me push through the beginning, which I found to be a little bit hard to get into. And now I'm nearly 140 pages in. I'm a little bit more than halfway, and I'm kind of obsessed with this right now. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, it's so good. I think this book has a really great, you know, creepy atmosphere. Like, the idea of this, you know, woman or creature or whatever it is named Daphne, like, I don't know, oh god, the idea of like a 7-foot creature with like greasy, oily black hair and like oil under her nails, and the way she's just like creeping around, like, oh my god, it's terrifying. And the thing is, with Daphne, they say you can't think about her or she'll come. So it's like the more you think about Daphne, the more of a chance that she's probably gonna come after you, you know? So like the whole thing is that you can't think about her, but it's like, of course, when you're told that you can't think about something, it just makes you want to think about it even more. And so our main character is also struggling because she has really severe anxiety about the situation, but also because, you know, when you tell someone with anxiety to stop thinking about something, it's just gonna make it even more intense. And it's almost, in a way, it's kind of like this idea of Daphne is almost like a metaphor for the anxiety that the main character is experiencing, which I'm really loving, like that kind of feeling that I'm getting from this. I'm also tabbing any parts that I find just really beautiful, that are either written that I find relatable about the main character's anxiety, or, you know, the anxiety about growing up and becoming an adult. Like, there's just some really beautiful moments. Love, this is on page 39. She writes this in her diary, and she's like, tell me, are all my dreams just sitting there ready for me? Are my dreams waiting for me to stop being so afraid? I don't even know what my dreams are anymore. Did I ever have any? I'm scared of being scared. These days I'm happy if I'm just not unhappy. These days I consider it a success if I just don't freak out. I thought that was super relatable. There's also just these beautiful quotes about like the teenage girls and like how they're experiencing their youth still, you know, because it says it's cool to poke fun at adults even as adulthood creeps up on them like ghosts. Just like the way that it's written, it's just so interesting, and I love it. I also love too because there is a point in this book where we get the point of view of one of the detectives who starts working on this case when these high school girls start, you know, dying. But it's interesting because I also like getting her point of view, because as an adult, she's kind of reflecting on her teenage years, whereas like when you're reading about the teenagers, they're talking about how afraid they are of growing up, and then when you're reading from her point of view as an adult, she's kind of reflecting on how like carefree and fun the teenage years were and how she misses them. I like how she says, it used to be that you could go out drinking and vent about school, your job, the world, and your place in it. Yes, back in high school and college, you felt shitty. You found a corner of the world to cry in. You felt like crying, you cried. You felt like dying, you put on some emotional music and you curled into a ball and you waited to see if it happened, and it never did, so you got back up and faced the world again. But gradually, over decades now, she felt that era end. Whether it's the professionalism that's expected of her or the fact that the world is actually moving at a faster clip, she doesn't know. And I think that's so beautiful. Like, I love whenever books can, you know, make you realize how pivotal of a time that your teenage years are and how you really start to feel like you're growing up, and that's really scary. Like, I feel like that is kind of like horror in a way, you know, like the idea that you're just gonna be pushed into adulthood and have to figure out your life. So I'm kind of loving it, you know, I'm kind of loving it because I love not only this commentary about, you know, teenagehood and anxiety and things like that, but also because it's genuinely creepy. Like, we're getting to the point right now in the book, like, I would say this book isn't really creepy up until almost like page 60 or maybe 70. Around there is when I was like, oh shit, like things start happening and it starts to get insane. And now I'm almost 140 pages in and I'm just like so freaked out. And even though I just started reading this earlier tonight, I think I'm gonna try to stay up and finish it tonight because it's only about 10 o'clock right now, but also because I feel like this book would be extra scary if I tried to like read it right now at night, because when I was walking down the hallway listening to this audiobook like in the dark, I was already like feeling like I didn't want to look over my shoulder because I would fucking see a tall woman standing there. It's getting to me. It's getting in my head. Almost midnight and I just finished reading Daphne. I don't even have words for my experience with this book. I feel like I related so much to the main character in this book and her, you know, problems with dealing with anxiety. And, you know, after reading the author's note at the end of this book, it seems like this book was a little bit more personal to Josh Malerman, which I think definitely shows because of, you know, anxiety is just such a personal thing that people deal with, and I think it really shows that, you know, he had some of his own experiences come through in this book. And like, oh my god, this book was just so fucking good. Like, this was an easy 5 stars for me. I can see why other people might not be enjoying this one though, like I can definitely see that, but me personally, this was a 5-star book for me. Like, I almost fucking cried at the end. I don't even know why. Like, it was beautiful. Like, the ending was fucking stunning. I read the author's note and like the acknowledgements as soon as I finished it, and then I almost cried reading his acknowledgements because of what he had to say about it. And my god, like, it's been so long since I've loved a Josh Malerman book this hard, and it makes me so happy. This was just incredible. Like, this had the perfect balance of like some truly creepy shit with this like 7-foot tall woman with like the fucking, she wears like the Kiss makeup on her face, and like just her whole story was like truly terrifying, and the way that she was like haunting the girls on this basketball team, it was genuinely so fucking creepy. Like, some scenes really got under my skin, and I have a feeling I'm gonna struggle to sleep tonight because of how freaked out some of these scenes made me, like genuinely so creepy. But then also, like, there was just some really beautiful writing about, you know, teenagehood and adulthood and living with anxiety, and how, you know, anxiety really is the biggest horror of it all, right? Like, I feel like Daphne as a character really represents this anxiety and this feeling of like lack of control in our lives, and I just think this was brilliant. Like, it was so well done. Props to Josh Malerman. And you know, it's hard for me to want to recommend this because I can see a lot of people really not enjoying this. I personally don't even give a fuck about basketball. Like, basketball is one of the sports I care the least about, and I still enjoyed this. Like, I don't think you have to enjoy basketball to enjoy this book, but I think this book is also probably perfect for people who do enjoy basketball and horror as a genre. This was just incredible. Like, I don't know, I see a lot of my friends giving this one like lower ratings, and it doesn't have the highest ratings right now on Goodreads, and I don't think this is going to be like a major crowd pleaser necessarily. Like, I think there's only a really specific group of people that this book is probably really going to be for. I even had a few moments towards the end there where there was like a plot twist that I did not see coming that I was completely shocked by. Like, just the ending of this book was so fascinating to me. I could go on and on and on about how much I love this. Like, I seriously think this might be in like my top 10 favorite books of the year, which is wild because I had convinced myself that I might want to DNF this in the first like 30 to 50 pages. I was so bored out of my mind in the beginning, and I feel like if you've started this book and you thought maybe this won't be my thing, maybe check out the audiobook instead, because I do feel like reading this physically I would have had a different experience, but the audiobook was so good. Like, the audiobook helped me push through what I found to be a kind of slow start, and it's like, yeah, I don't know, should I really be giving this book 5 stars when I thought the beginning was so boring to the point where I almost DNF'd it, but at the same time, like, the rest of the story made up for it so much to the point where it almost made me emotional. I just love when horror books can be like truly scary, but then also have really like great and beautiful coming of age stories and have something more that I relate to. Like, the anxiety thing is something that I really relate to, and I just love that. Like, this is a horror book that it checks all my boxes, you know, like it has everything that I'm looking for in a horror book. I don't know if this one or House at the Bottom of a Lake are still my favorite. Bird Box is definitely up there. I also really love Pearl. There's been a few misses from Josh Malerman over the years, so I never know what I'm gonna get with his books, you know, but this was definitely a clear winner for me and definitely now one of my top favorites from him. Holy shit. What's up? Good morning. I am still recovering from the experience of reading Daphne last night. It was just so freaking good. I was like raving about the book to my family this morning, being like, can you believe? And anyways, I think I've decided that I want to pick up Wrong Place, Wrong Time next. This was so kindly recently sent to me by my friend Brittany, who read this book and loved it. She gave it 5 stars, and she also said she thinks it's her favorite book that she's read so far this year. So I'm pretty hyped. I don't really know anything about this other than the fact that it's a thriller. It has really good reviews on Goodreads so far. I think it came out this summer at some time. And the main premise just says, can you stop a murder after it's already happened? And apparently we're following this mother who, you know, this one also, okay, it takes place in late October after midnight. So like, that's already a good sign that this is like the perfect time to be reading this. And basically she's like waiting up for her 17-year-old son to get home. And then she witnesses her son like murdering this stranger through the window. And she's like, what the heck? And then when she goes to bed that night, she wakes up and it's the day before the murder. And then every day that she goes to bed, she wakes up and it's like another day before, so that she could like potentially stop the murder from happening. Much later in the day. It's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and earlier I did get the chance to start Wrong Place, Wrong Time. I read a little bit earlier, and then I went to the gym, and then me and Rachel got dinner, and now it's about 5 o'clock, and I am excited to let you know that I'm now 130 pages in, and so far I'm finding this book to be really interesting, but I also think it has kind of a slow start. You know, this book pretty much just starts right away with the opening scene in that chapter where the mom is like looking out the window and they see their teenage son just like stabs some stranger and they don't know what's going on or what could have happened. And then the next day when she wakes up the day before the murder happened. And we just kind of follow her point of view as she's trying to figure out why this could be happening. And she just keeps waking up either like a day before, and now it's like jumping even more into the past. And so she's trying to figure out if this is because, you know, she could be the one to maybe prevent this murder from happening in the first place. And it's really interesting, you know, I feel like it follows the typical kind of tropes with this type of story in the beginning, where like the character's trying to figure out why this could be happening. They have a couple different theories about what's going on, and she's testing out different things to see if she's right. And you know, the concept of this book is really interesting. I always love anything that has to do with like some kind of time travel, or like a person that's repeating the same days over and over and over again. Like, I love that style of storytelling. But yeah, I am really curious to see where this one's going. And like, based on a lot of the reviews that I've seen from my friends on Goodreads, a lot of people say the ending of this book is really shocking, so I'm looking forward to seeing where this all goes. Going home in the back of a car and your hand touches mine. When we're done making love and you look up and give me those eyes, 'cause all of the small things that you do are what remind me what I felt for you. And when we're apart and I'm missing you, I close my eyes and all I see is you, and the small things you do. And the small things you do. Love that song. It's so freaking beautiful. Okay, hi, it's the next afternoon. I haven't been doing the best job of vlogging, but I wanted to update you because I just finished reading Wrong Place, Wrong Time. And this is a book that I have some pretty mixed feelings on, because there were some things that I really liked about this and some things that I found to be really just like slow and kind of boring with this book. I don't know what it was about the writing, but I just wasn't a huge fan of the writing this book. Like, I found it really hard to pay attention. Like, I don't know, my brain just kept wandering while I was reading this, and usually I find that that's because the writing just isn't really gripping me in the way that I want it to. But at the same time, like, I love the concept of this book and I love the idea of it, you know? Like, I love any books that kind of explore a kind of multi-universe, or like what would have happened if this one event had never happened, or something like that, you know? Like, I love the exploration of that in books. This book did also have a pretty surprising plot twist at the end that I did not see coming, and I thought was actually pretty clever. And then I also did like the epilogue, like the way this book ended. I had to reread it twice because I was like, wait, what? And so I liked the epilogue. I thought it was really interesting and kind of leaves room for a discussion at the end of this book, which I also really do like. But at the same time, like, this book just wasn't my favorite reading experience. I think I just expected a little bit more from the story. Like, I didn't really end up caring about any of these characters, which is surprising to me because I feel like this book really, almost in a way, it kind of relies on you to care about these characters in order to care about the story and what's going on, because it is so heavily about this woman and her, you know, her motherhood and her husband and her love for her family. But because I didn't really care about any of the characters, the stakes just never felt that high for me. But yeah, I think I'm probably gonna end up giving this one 3 stars. I thought it was good. It just wasn't quite what I was hoping it would be, I guess, if that makes sense. On to the next one, which is probably gonna be The Dead Romantics, because I also did just get the audiobook checked out for this one, and I've been seeing this book around everywhere recently. Like, my friend Rachel Hope just posted about this book like last night, and she was saying how this is a new 5-star, like, new favorite of hers, and so I'm even more excited to read this. I don't even really know what this one's about. I've just heard from so many people that it would be the perfect October read because it involves like ghosts, I think, in some way. Like, there's some kind of paranormal aspect to this book, and on the back it just says that we follow this woman named Florence, who's a ghostwriter for one of the most prolific romance authors in the industry, but after a terrible breakup she no longer believes in love. I don't know, I don't want to read too much of the back because I kind of want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, and so let's do it. I'm hyped.
Waking up in my bed, you're still stuck in my head. I'm not even hungover. I wanna call your phone, tell you what you did wrong, then ask you to
much later in the night. It's after 11 o'clock at night, but I wanted to update you because I've been reading The Dead Romantics pretty much all afternoon, and I am really, really enjoying this book so far. I am on page 186, so I'm honestly about halfway through the book right now. I've already had so many tabs and so many moments that I'm just like absolutely loving. I jumped into this book not really knowing anything, and I do think that that's the best way to jump into this book. So if you don't want to hear like literally anything about this book, then maybe skip forward a little bit. But I'm not going to be talking about anything that's not in the description of the book. But basically we're following this woman named Florence, and she is a ghostwriter for this like super successful romance author, and nobody knows, you know, that she is the writer. She's kind of hired on as her assistant. So for most people, they just think that she's this famous author's assistant, when in reality she is the ghostwriter for this author. And there's not a lot of people in the world that know that. But recently she's going through a really bad breakup with this guy who was just kind of awful. Like, he did a really awful and terrible thing, and now she's very like insecure, and she almost feels like she doesn't even believe in love anymore. And so she's really struggling with the current book that she's working on, because now that she doesn't believe in love anymore, she's like, I don't think I can do this anymore. Like, I don't want to write romance. And then she gets the awful news that her dad has recently passed away, and she's going to be having to go back to her small town where she's originally from to kind of deal with the fact that her dad just passed away, which I did not even read that in the description of this book. I was like, holy shit, like when that scene happened, it took me so off guard. Interesting thing about Florence and her character is that she can see ghosts, and that's like the paranormal kind of aspect to this book that I think is really interesting. This book is just so cute so far. There's actually a romance that's happening between her and a ghost, kind of, which is just, it's kind of strange, but it's also just like written in a way that it's like really fucking cute, and I'm kind of here for this romance. And I'm also kind of curious to see where this goes, you know, because if she's having a relationship with a fucking ghost, I mean, I don't know, I feel like this book so far has just been really unique and like not what I was expecting at all. I also love, you know, there's so many good quotes in this book about like working in the publishing industry and working as a writer, and you know, I love books that follow writers just in general. Like, that's something I love to read about. I also love how much this author's like mentioning other romance writers. Like, right in the beginning of this book, she talks about Red, White, and Royal Blue, and then she talks about The Hating Game, and then in another chapter she's talking about Christina Lauren and a bunch of other best-selling authors, and I'm like, this is so cool. This book is also just like really well written, because there were some scenes that were already wanting to make me cry only like 50 pages into the book that had to do with her dad, because, you know, it's almost right away in this book when we find out that he passes away. So there's already some, you know, really emotional, moving, like childhood memory kind of moments being brought up, and it's just, the writing is so well done, like it's making me emotional. But then also like the banter between the two love interests is just like really cute. Like, I don't know, it's making me all giddy, and like I'm underlining like their cute quotes to each other. It's almost giving me like if Emily Henry wrote this, but there's like ghosts. Like, that's like the kind of vibe that I'm getting from this book. Like, I don't know, I'm really loving the chemistry between the two leads. I know it's stupid, but I love that the protagonist, I love that her name is Florence, because then I can easily just picture Florence Pugh, and that just makes me so happy to do so. So yeah, I don't know, I'm really enjoying this book. You know, I'm 50% of the way in. I think I'm gonna try to finish this tomorrow morning. I'm actually gonna be doing some Patreon reading sprints tomorrow morning, so I think I'm gonna try to not only finish The Dead Romantics, but also start on the next thing that I'm hoping to read for this video, which hopefully will be the new Ian Reid book, We Spread. I just got the audiobook checked out for my library, so like, let's fucking do it. So I'll probably be finishing this one up tomorrow morning on sprints, and then jumping right into the next thing, because that's what we do.
Good with decisions, know what's right, but I don't listen, I don't. And I complain and dismiss it, then I keep on reminiscing. I know, baby you're bad, baby you're bad, baby you're bad, baby you're bad for business, baby you're bad.
Not this book making me cry while I'm on a reading sprint. This book is so beautiful.
Consequence. I found myself back again.
Okay, hi. okay, it's a little bit later in the afternoon, it's 3 o'clock, but I just finished reading The Dead Romantics, and holy shit, this was 5 stars. I loved this so much. Like, it's so rare for me these days to actually cry over a book, and this book had me crying. I mean, I really should have expected for this book to make me emotional because, you know, at the beginning of this book, her dad does pass away, and so there's a lot of talk in this book about grief and about, you know, life and death and how that affects your life. And you know, because this protagonist can see ghosts, you know, there is a lot of talk about life and death in this book, and it was just really powerful, and it was just such a beautiful story. Like, I was actually really surprised by 2 different things in the plot that happened towards the end of this book. Like, there were some surprises, like things that I didn't predict would happen that happened that I just loved. And like, once again, the chemistry between these 2 is incredible. Ben is one of my favorite love interests that I've read in a long time. Like, it's almost to the point where he's like a little bit too perfect to be real, you know? Like, fictional men exist for a reason because a real man could never be this soft, you know? But I also just want to praise this book for how unique of a story it is, you know? Because I was talking about this on my Patreon reading sprints about how nowadays I feel like romances are so similar these days, and like there's a lot of similar tropes in romance books, but I can honestly say I've never read anything quite like this book. I loved how unique it was in the premise and how our main character can like see ghosts. It was just like a really cute kind of paranormal twist, and I also just loved like the writing in this. I feel like I'm pretty sure this author has only written young adult before, because I am pretty sure that I've read one of her young adult books, but like, gosh, this writing is incredible. And like, I love seeing this trend of like some authors who've published YA in the past writing these more adult kind of romance books, because I feel like Emily Henry did the same thing, you know, with her career. So I would love to see this author write more romances like this in the future. Yeah, gosh, I'm glad that I loved this as much as I did, because it sounded like it would be the perfect October read, and it really is, like, to the point where I might consider reading this one like every October. Like, that's how much I love it. But also, like, I'm glad that I loved it as much as I did, because this is a romance that kind of checks all the boxes for me on things that I usually love in romance books. Like, I love books that take place in New York, and this one does a little bit because she lives in New York, but then she goes back to her small town. So, like, we get some New York vibes. I also love books that follow writers, which this one does, you know, like, she's a ghostwriter, and there's a lot of talk about, like, the publishing industry, and, like, you know, her love interest, Ben, is an editor, so there's just a lot of talk about that world, which I also love reading about. And it made me cry, which, you know, this book gets bonus points for that, because I feel like these days I have a heart of stone, and it takes a lot to make me cry, so kudos to The Dead Romantics. It's totally worth the hype. It is so freaking good. Anyways, I think I have about 12 minutes left on this current sprint, and then I might do one more sprint after this, but I think I'm going to start on the We Spread audiobook because I just got it checked out from my library. So I'm so excited. This audiobook's only 6 hours long. So like, let's fucking go. Let's do it. Okay, hi. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I wanted to do a quick update though, because during those sprints, I got 40% of the way through We Spread by Ian Reid. And this book is really interesting so far. I mean, it's described as a philosophical horror novel, and it honestly is reading a little bit more on the like literary horror side, which I do like. Definitely a slow burn, but it has this feeling of like unease so far that's just making me super like on edge while I'm reading it. And in this story, we're just following this woman named Penny, and right at the start of this book, like in the very first chapter, we learn that her lifelong partner has recently passed away, and she's kind of struggling to take care of herself because she's feeling a little, not just like lonely being in the apartment by herself, but she also is starting to feel like she can't trust her own memory anymore, which is obviously very scary. And it's about how she moves into this like old person's retirement home kind of thing, and they're saying, oh yeah, like your partner had arranged for this to happen like months ago, like before they died. And she was like, oh, like really, like I don't remember that. Like she doesn't remember anything about having this arrangement already set up, so it feels a little bit shady, like you don't know if you can trust them, which I think is a major thing with Ian Reid's books, is that you'll have all these characters that you don't know if you can trust them. You don't even know if you can trust your own protagonist. It's just very interesting, like psychologically and philosophically, like thinking about it. But also, like, there's this one quote from the book where she says, if we could stay young, we'd have nothing to be anxious about. Aging is frightening. And I think that that quote alone captures the entire vibe of this book so far, because I feel like the main thing that's really horrifying in this book so far is this idea of aging, and, you know, like how as we get older, we can't really rely on ourselves the way that we used to, because we have to start to rely on others because our memories aren't as good as they used to be. And, like, you know, just getting older is scary. It's horrifying. And I feel like that's like the main thing happening in this book, is that we're slowly, you know, starting to follow Penny as she's starting to age and feel like she can't trust her own memory anymore. And it's horrifying. You know, I feel like Ian Reid really leans into those like everyday horrors that are things that you don't really think about very often, but they're just so horrifying, like the idea of getting older. And yeah, anyways, me and my sister are probably going to go out to dinner right now, and then later tonight when I get home, I really do want to finish We Spread tonight. I mean, I'm already 40% of the way through, and I only have 3.5 hours left of this audiobook. Like, it is a very short book. Okay, hi. It's like 11:30 at night, and I just finished listening to We Spread on audio, and like, I don't know why the ending just made me so emotional. Like, what? It's so stupid, because I don't even think that this book is intended to have like a sad ending. I just randomly just felt like I needed to cry at the end of that book. Like, I don't know why that ending just really affected me. Oh my gosh, this was so unexpected. Like, towards the end, I was getting so confused on like what's going on. In typical, you know, Ian Reid fashion, it's just very, you know, confusing and like hard to follow, and you're just kind of like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I don't know if I can trust our protagonist. I don't know if I can trust anybody else in this story. But God, there was just something so beautiful and sad about that ending. Like, that just really got to me. Like, that was literally the perfect ending. This is one of those books that just really makes you think about your life, and, you know, like how it's scary to age, because if you feel like you can't rely on your own mind anymore. Oh God, I'm sorry, I don't even know why I'm so emotional about this. Like, this book just, it's like that fear of, like, you know, eventually getting dementia or Alzheimer's, or like losing your mind, like when you can't rely on yourself anymore. I just think that that's really scary. I feel like this book really like touches on those fears like to an extreme. Like, I don't even understand, like, I don't even fully understand what I just read, and I don't even fully understand that ending, but it was something about the way that it was written. It was just so beautiful. God, this is so embarrassing. I never react to books in this way. Like, what the fuck? I was just saying earlier today, after I finished The Dead Romantics, that, like, it's really rare for me to cry over books. So this is, like, totally unexpected. Like, I don't know why I'm having such an emotional reaction to this book. I think it's because, I've just been kind of imagining the protagonist, you know, as my own grandma, and, like, that ending just, like, broke my heart. But, like, in a really, like, beautiful way. Like, it wasn't, like, a terrible, tragic ending. It was just, I don't know what's wrong with me. This is embarrassing. Am I gonna put this on YouTube? I don't know. Wow, that was really good. I need some time to think about, like, what the fuck did I just read, and how do I feel about it? Because, wow, that was a lot. That was a lot for me, clearly. Okay, hi, it's been a day or two since the last clip that you saw of me, you know, bawling my eyes out over the book We Spread, and you want to know what's so funny and so cool is that yesterday when I went to go check the mail, freaking Diana sent it off of my Amazon wish list, and I was literally gonna go to Amazon to like purchase this book, and then I was like, wait, did I put it on my Amazon wish list? And I went to go check it and it wasn't on there. So I was like, oh my gosh, did somebody literally just buy this book off my Amazon wish list? Like, the timing is incredible, Diana, so thank you so much. What the heck? Literally, as soon as I got it in the mail, I just went in there like a maniac and started annotating this book and writing in all of my thoughts, like, so much. Like, the amount of annotating I did towards the end of this book is unreal. Like, this might be one of my most annotated books that I've ever annotated. And, you know, after reflecting on this book even more after I finished reading it, I think this might be my favorite book that I've read this year. And I kind of wanted the opportunity to explain why and kind of better be able to review this book after taking a couple of days to really sit and think on it. Because this book really touches on one of my biggest fears as a human being, and that's aging. And not just so much aging, like, you know, because aging, it just sounds like such a stupid thing to be afraid of because it's like, it's inevitable, it's something that happens to everyone, but you know, it's just something that's on my mind a lot. Aging is just scary, not just about, you know, myself, but also like seeing my family age, seeing people I care about getting older, and it's just scary. You know, like one of my favorite Taylor Swift lyrics of all time is, "I never grew up, it's getting so old." And that's one of my favorite lines ever because I relate to that. And I feel like this book just touches on that fear to an extreme, to the point where it just really triggered me, but in a way that was like really powerful. Like I feel like this is going to be one of those books that really changes my life. I feel like I want to warn you that this book might be especially triggering for you if you've ever had anyone in your life that deals with dementia or Alzheimer's, which, you know, in my family, like not in my immediate family, I'm very thankful to have never dealt with those, but I have dealt with a family member having dementia before, and it's just really sad and awful and scary. And that's not like a spoiler for this book because it's never directly mentioned if this character has dementia or Alzheimer's, but when you read a book like this, you can just make a few assumptions about her character and what this author is implying with this story. But yeah, this book just touched me in a way that I was not prepared for and that I didn't think was gonna happen. Like, it was just so incredible and so beautiful. And I do want to jump into some spoilers about this book because I feel like to fully explain why this book impacted me so much as a human, I need the opportunity to talk about some spoilers with this book. So I will be putting a spoiler warning on the screen for the duration of time that I'm talking about spoilers with this book, but I just have to talk about it, you know, because it's probably my favorite book that I've read this year, and I feel like I need to express why. So this book has to be one of the like most well-written books that I've read in a long time, which is part of the reason why I think I enjoyed it so much. I mean, I was literally annotating like every single page just because the writing itself is really gorgeous, but also written in a way that's like really depressing, but it makes you think about the world and it makes you think about life. And I feel like this book really hit me in a way because I feel like this book, you know, touches on my fear of aging to the point where it's like, you know, one of my biggest fears about aging is losing my own mind a little bit and not being able to rely on myself the way that I used to, you know, because me and myself, I'm a very independent person. I'm very like self-reliant. I like to get things done on myself and not really have to rely on other people. And I think that that's why this book impacted me so much, is because the idea of aging is scary because as you start to get older, you have to start to rely on others more. I think there's so many different messages though that this book touches upon that I think are really important subjects. Like, for example, on page 102, these characters talk about how they're like, well, isn't common ground the most important thing? Like coming together for good and being like on the same page, like isn't that important? And this other character says, I find contrast soothing too. I know that there's a flip side. I think that's beautiful. It's not unlike floating. It's balance and proportion. And I feel like this book, so much of this book is talking about the way that we treat and the way that we view elderly people when they get to a certain age and they have to go to these homes, right? And the way that we want them all to be the same. You know, like there's a lot of talk in this book about how we don't treat elderly people as individuals anymore, and we kind of see them as this like collective group in this home, and they're all expected to be treated the same way. They all like, you know, like there's a scene where she has to get the exact same haircut as the other woman there, and it's almost like you start to feel like you're losing your mind because you're starting to lose who you are as an individual person, and people stop caring about that. And I think that that's really scary. And so I feel like with this quote in particular, he's really trying to touch on the fact that our differences in opinion and as, you know, individuals really makes us who we are, and that our differences make us unique, and that that's like a really beautiful thing that we shouldn't have to, you know, get rid of as we age. There's another quote that kind of also touches on this theory on page 280 when she says, there are so many trees outside this house, so many you can never know them all, but each one is there and each one counts. And that's once again, I think, kind of a metaphor showing that, you know, all of these elderly people, they're just viewed as like a forest, right? They're just viewed as like the woods, and you don't see the individual trees anymore. And so it's kind of saying how the older you get, the more your individuality is kind of stripped away. But I also think there's a really interesting discussion about like life and how life is more valuable because it's not forever. This is on page 126 when they said, what would the work mean if it was endless? What would a relationship mean if it kept going forever? What would a day be if it didn't end? And then she said, what if time was all you had? Maybe if we had all the time in the world, life would start to feel meaningless or worse. And I think that's such a beautiful and like really valid thing to say and to think about, you know, because it's like they're saying it's what everyone wants. Like everyone just wants more time. But it's also like if we had so much more time and it was endless, would anything really have value anymore? You know, like things in our life are valuable and we appreciate them because we know it's going to be short. Like we only have so much time on this earth. And so that's why we really value these things in our lives. But maybe we would start to, you know, dread or like take for granted all of these beautiful things in our life if they were just endless. But one of the quotes that really got me and like started to get me, like my heart was racing towards the end of this book, is on page 281. There's this really beautiful like paragraph at the bottom of this page that just says, "We do not all blend together. We are not ruined, helpless, a burden. We are not the elderly. We are not old people. Now still, we're unique. We're distinct. Regardless of what we've produced or what happens to our bodies, we each have our own memories and experiences, even if they've been lost and forgotten. We, all of us can finally rest." And I think that quote was so beautiful and so profound. And then towards the next chapter, towards the end, she starts talking about her work and all that she's done, you know, because she's a painter and she has all of these paintings. And she said it will spread to them, all of them, to Ruth and Pete, Hilbert. It will spread to Jack and to Shelley. I hope she feels something and I hope it comforts her, because she's saying that her work will live on longer than she will and that she hopes it brings people comfort that she loves. And I think the whole idea of this we spread is how we spread ourselves through time. You know, like we will carry on after we die and we'll leave behind things that will hopefully bring people we love comfort. And just that quote about how like regardless of what we produced or what happens to our bodies, we each have our own memories and experiences, even if they've been lost and forgotten. Like, are you fucking kidding me? It's just so beautiful and so touching. And, you know, it's really scary as this character starts to feel like she's losing her grip on time, you know, because she's starting to wonder. She's like, "You guys just clipped my nails yesterday." And they're like, "No, we didn't. Like, it's been a long time." And then she starts to realize that, you know, she might have been at this facility for years. Like, they're saying over the years that you've been here. And she's like, "I feel like I've only been here for a few weeks." And she's just starting to lose her grip on time. And it's really scary because you don't know if you can trust yourself, because you can't rely on your own mind anymore as this protagonist, but you also, like, the idea of not being able to trust the people that you're putting your life in their hands, basically, and the fact that she's paranoid about them and doesn't know if she can trust them, and you don't know if it's because there's actually something sinister going on, or if it's just because she's starting to have issues with her memory. Like, I think that's the most horrifying thing I've ever read in my life. And then, the way this book ends with the final line in this book being, "I feel myself rise off the ground, fall through the air. I'm hurtling at great speed, or maybe for a moment I'm floating." And this kind of ties back to, there was a discussion earlier in the book on page 100 when they said, if you could have done anything, what would you have done? And she said, "I wanted to levitate and to float." And they're like, "Oh, so you wanted to fly?" And she's like, "No, to float." And she's like, "I just wanted to float for a moment, to feel my feet off the ground. I've always felt my weight. It's impossible to know what it would feel like until you feel it." And then connecting that conversation to that in the beginning, like her ending it with saying she wanted to float. Like, I literally burst into tears. Like, I burst into tears. I was a sobbing mess. And then the very final last page is just her little, like, obituary that just says, "In her 92nd year, she passed away peacefully at the Six Cedars residence, surrounded by her caring staff. She leaves behind her stunning art collection and all of her friends. Over the years, the staff and residents at Six Cedars loved Penny like family. A visitation was held at the residence, followed by a celebration of her life. She'll be dearly missed." And I'm like, okay, this raises so many questions, and I love the ending of a book where we can think, like, was that ending really ambiguous? Like, we don't have any answers, but I love it. Because you're left to wonder, like, okay, was that scene at the end of her throwing herself off a cliff and then floating and, like, levitating? Was that killing herself at the end? Like, did she kill herself? Was she actually dead the whole time that she was at this facility? Which is one of my strong theories, because I feel like at the beginning when they even take her into the facility, I thought maybe that's just a scene of her dying and she doesn't even know, and like this place is the afterlife. But then another theory is that, you know, was there something actually sinister going on with the staff, or was it just her issues with her memory, making her think that there was something sinister going on, when really this book is just showing the horror of what it's like to have something like dementia or Alzheimer's, when you start to feel like you can't trust yourself, or like you're losing your grip on time and like your place in the world. I feel like for me, this is just a really heartbreaking story and a really eye-opening story about what it can be like to, you know, start to lose your own memories and how it feels to not really have a grip on where you're at in the world right now. Like, that is the most scary thing. I'm trying not to cry because like that shit really gets to me. And I also think that this book has just some really great commentary on how we view the elderly people in our society and how we stop viewing them as individual people and more of this like collective group, especially when they get put into these homes like this. And this book just really makes you think a lot about like the end of your life and, you know, all that comes with that and with aging, and it's literally so freaking good. I feel like this is one of those books where I could really go on and on about why I love this book so much and even dissect it even more, but I'm not going to bore you with all of that. Just know that I loved it. Just know that it impacted me so much. Like, I feel like this book is one of those books that will change my life, because I was so, like, I'm still depressed, honestly, from finishing this book. Like, it really just impacted me in a way that not a lot of books have. And I just think the way that this book was done was brilliant. Like, I just think it's so brilliant. It's so well thought out, and it's just so beautiful. And I think it's also such an important book for people to read, you know? Because I think for me personally, there's nothing more scary than the idea of like losing your own memories and losing your own mind, because not being in control of my own life and my own mind is the scariest shit to me. So I feel like this book just really touched on something that feels really personal to me, and that's why it's probably my favorite book that I've read this year, because wow, I feel like I want to reread this even though I don't know if I could handle it emotionally, just because I want to pick apart even more. Like, I just want to annotate and like pick apart every single conversation and see even more of like what I'm getting out of this book. So yeah, holy shit, amazing. I just love when this happens. Like, I love when a book impacts me in this way. I think, you know, Ian Reid is definitely a new favorite author because all of his books have been 4 or 5 stars for me, but I do think this one is my personal favorite that he's done so far. Like, wow, what a life, what a world. This was a very successful reading vlog because I enjoyed pretty much almost everything that I read in this. I had so many 5 stars, and I was not expecting to cry so much throughout this vlog either, so like, that was a thing. Hello there, hi, it's me again. This is just your friendly reminder to use the link in my description. Go and check out Ana Luisa and use my code gabbyreads10 for 10% off at checkout, because look at this jewelry! Look at my mood ring, it's already turning blue. Isn't that so cute? Oh! But anyways, thank you so much for watching this vlog. If you've read any of the books that I read in this vlog, let me know what you think about them. And also, if you have read this book, let's discuss in the comments. And if you have not yet read this book, let me know if I've convinced you in any way to pick up this book. Thank you so much for being here, as always, and I will see you with another vlog very soon. Thanks, bye.